You're standing over the ball. You take it back smooth. You feel good about it. And then somewhere on the way down, that right elbow flies out away from your body and the ball leaks right. Weak, short, nothing like you pictured. You felt it. I felt it for 15 years. Here's what I finally learned. That right elbow is not something you fix with your arm at all. It's the last thing that should move. And the reason behind your slice, your fat shots, and your slow loss of power all trace back to one small motion that almost nobody bothers to teach anymore. This is old knowledge. It's the kind of thing the greatest ball strikers who ever lived built their entire swings on, and it quietly got buried under a mountain of new gear and expensive quick fixes. So stick with me, because near the end, I'm going to show you a drill straight out of a book published in 1957. A drill so simple you can do it in your living room tonight with a golf glove or a small hand towel you already own. That one thing fixed my right elbow in a single afternoon after more than a decade of fighting it. I still remember the exact spot. A beat-up rubber mat at a little range off the county road, a cold spring morning, a bucket of faded yellow range balls, and the moment I finally understood I'd been wrong about this the whole time. Let me start with the part that made me feel like a fool, because maybe it'll save you the same trouble. For years, every time someone told me my right elbow was flying, I did the obvious thing. I tried to jam it into my side. I squeezed it against my ribs on the way down. I held it tight. I muscled it in there, and my shots got worse. Not a little worse. A lot worse. I'd hit these ugly hooks, then blocks. Then I'd chunk 120 yards. The harder I tried to control that elbow, the more the wheels came off. That's the first thing I want you to understand, because it's a trap. The flying right elbow is a symptom. It is almost never the disease. When you try to fix the symptom by force, you just create 3 new problems somewhere else in the swing. I was treating the smoke and ignoring the fire, and the fire, it turns out, starts much lower in the body than the arm. Here's what's actually supposed to happen, and it's beautiful once you see it. In a good downswing, the right elbow doesn't get shoved into the body by the arm. It gets pulled down and in front of the right hip by the lower body, starting the swing from the ground up. The pros call it dropping the elbow into the slot. The elbow leads, the hands follow, and the club head comes last. When that sequence happens in the right order, the elbow ends up in front of your right hip pocket, pointing roughly down at the ground, almost on its own. You don't force it. You let it fall. Think about throwing a ball underhand or skipping a stone across a pond. Your elbow drops down close to your side first, then your forearm and hand release last. Nobody skips a stone with their elbow sticking straight out from their body. Your body already knows this motion. Golf just scrambled it, because we get up over that little white ball and our brain screams hit it, and we throw the club head and the elbow from the top all at once. Now here's the number that got my attention when I first read it. Sports scientists who've measured tour players found that the very best ball strikers start their downswing with the lower body while the club is still finishing its move to the top. There's this tiny overlap, a fraction of a second, where the hips are already shifting and turning toward the target while the arms and club are still going back. That overlap is what drops the elbow into place. Amateurs like the old me do the exact opposite. We finish the backswing, freeze, and then fire everything from the top with the hands and shoulders. And when the shoulders fire first, that right elbow has nowhere to go but out and away, every single time. So I understood the theory. I understood the elbow was a follower, not a leader, but understanding it and doing it are 2 different animals, and that's where I fell into a hole that cost me real money and years of frustration. Because when I went looking for help, I didn't get taught this simple old idea. I got sold something else entirely. Let me tell you what happened next, because this is where I started to get angry. And I think you'll recognize your own story in mine. Once I knew my right elbow was the issue, I did what most of us do. I opened my wallet. First, it was a new driver, because the salesman at the big box store swore up and down that the new adjustable model would straighten out my ball flight. $540. My slice got prettier, but it was still a slice. Then it was the training aids. I bought a strap that velcros your arms together. I bought a plastic thing that clips to your side to hold the elbow in. I bought an inflatable ball you squeeze between your forearms. I've got a drawer in my garage, and if I added it all up, I spent well over $800 on gadgets designed to hold my right elbow in place. And here's the cruel joke none of them told me. Every one of those gadgets fixes the symptom by force. They physically trap the elbow against your body. So the second you take the strap off and go play, your body doesn't know what to do because you never learned the actual movement. You just borrowed a crutch. The gadget did the work. You didn't. That's not an accident. That's a business model. Think about who profits when you believe your problem is a product. The equipment makers sell you a new driver every 18 months because a new driver is a lot easier to sell than a lesson in patience. The training aid companies sell you a $50 plastic clip, and when it doesn't stick, they sell you the next one. There's an entire industry built on the quiet promise that your golf problems can be purchased away, and that the answer is always something new, always something you don't have yet, always something that costs money. Nobody in that whole chain makes a dime teaching you that the fix is free, that it's a feeling, and that men figured it out clean and simple more than 70 years ago with nothing but a golf club in their own two hands, because they did figure it out. And their names are worth knowing. Ben Hogan, who many people still call the finest striker of a golf ball who ever lived, wrote a book in 1957 called 5 Lessons, illustrated by an artist named Anthony Ravielli. In that book, Hogan talks about the right elbow with a precision that stops you cold. He describes how, coming down, the right elbow should return to a spot just in front of the right hip, tucked close to the body. Hogan said he wanted that elbow so connected to his side coming down that it felt like it was tied there. There's a famous idea from his teaching that he liked to feel the elbow return to the same exact point on his body every time, like it was homing in on a target sewn onto his shirt. And Hogan wasn't alone. Byron Nelson, who in 1945 won 11 tournaments in a row, a record that still stands and probably always will, built his whole action around what teachers now call connection, the trail arm and elbow staying linked to the turn of the body. Sam Snead, who kept his swing smooth into his 70s, had the same look. Watch old film of any of these men and you'll see it. That right elbow drops into the slot in front of the hip like it's on a rail. None of them had a plastic clip. None of them had an adjustable driver. They had a feeling, and they had a method. And the method was old even when they were young. So how did we lose it? We lost it the same way we lose most good things. It got inconvenient to sell. A feeling can't be shipped in a box. Patience doesn't have a barcode. And slowly, over a few decades, the plain old fundamentals start from the ground. Let the elbow fall in front of the hip. Let the hands come last. Got shouted down by the noise of the next new thing. I fell for the noise for 15 years. I'm telling you all this so you don't have to lose 15 more. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right about now, because I thought it too. You're thinking, this sounds complicated. This sounds like something for younger players with flexible backs. This isn't for me. Maybe you're 68 and your shoulder doesn't turn like it used to. Maybe you only play once a week with your buddies and you don't want a science project. You just want to stop embarrassing yourself off the first tee. I want to talk to you directly right now because this next part is built specifically for you and it costs nothing. Here's the simplest version, and you can do it today in your living room during a commercial break. Take a golf glove or a small hand towel or even a folded washcloth. Tuck it up under your right armpit and pin it there by gently pressing your upper arm against your side. Now, without a club, just fold your right arm up like you're at the top of the backswing, keeping that towel pinned. Then slowly bring your arm down and let your right elbow lead down toward your right hip pocket. If the towel stays pinned all the way down until your hands reach your belt, you did it right. If the towel drops out early, that's your flying elbow exposed right there in your living room. No gadget, no money, just a towel and the truth. If any of this is starting to sound familiar, the wasted money, the borrowed crutches, The feeling that someone somewhere must know the real answer. I put together a digital book called Fix First that goes straight to the root of exactly this problem. It's the distilled version of everything I learned from those old masters, written the way they taught, not positions to memorize, but feelings to own. You'll find it linked in the description below, and everything in it costs less than one of those plastic gadgets gathering dust in your garage. Keep that in mind as I walk you through what the industry never wanted you to hear. Do that 10 times a night. That's it. 10 slow repetitions while the news is on. You are teaching your body the feeling of the elbow staying connected to the turn instead of flying off on its own. And here's the part I love. Because you're moving slow and there's no ball, there's no urge to hit anything, so your body actually learns the pattern instead of panicking. Within a week of doing this on my living room carpet, I walked onto that cold range off the county road and hit the first crisp, straight iron I'd struck in years. I actually laughed out loud. A grown man laughing at a golf ball because a dish towel had just taught me what $800 of plastic never could. And if you want to make it even more real, here's the second free step. Take that same feeling to the range, but do not swing hard. Hit little half shots, waist high to waist high, at maybe half your normal effort. On every one of those little swings, your only job is to feel that right elbow arrive in front of your right hip before your hands release the club. Slow and small teaches the sequence. Big and fast just repeats your old mistake louder. I promise you 10 of those little half shots will teach you more than a whole bucket of full speed lashes ever will. But here's where it gets deeper. And here's the thing that finally made all of it click for me. The idea that turned a mechanical fix into something my body just does without thinking. Because a towel under the armpit is a wonderful start, but it's still treating the arm. The real secret, the one the old masters actually understood, isn't about the arm at all. There's a book I stumbled onto, written by an Englishman named Percy Boomer, published in 1942, called On Learning Golf. Boomer was a teaching professional in France between the wars, and he taught in a way that has almost vanished today. He didn't teach positions, he taught feels. And Boomer's whole philosophy came down to one idea he called the pivot, the notion that everything good in the golf swing comes from the turning of the body around a stable center, and that the arms and hands are just passengers. Boomer wrote that a golfer should feel connected, as if the arms and body moved as one piece, and he had this unforgettable image. He said you should feel like you're swinging inside a barrel, your hips turning but never sliding past the staves. Turn inside the barrel, and the arms and that troublesome right elbow simply come along for the ride into the right place. When I read that, something loosened in my chest, because for 15 years I'd been trying to place my elbow like hanging a picture on a wall. And Boomer was telling me back in 1942 that you never place the elbow, you turn your body correctly, and the elbow has no choice but to fall exactly where it belongs. The flying elbow isn't an arm that's misbehaving, it's a body that stopped turning and started throwing. Fix the turn, and you never have to think about the elbow again. Here's the piece that proves it, and it's the paradox that used to drive me crazy. You look at Jack Nicklaus, the greatest champion the game has ever seen, 18 professional major titles, and at the top of his backswing, his right elbow is flying, sticking out, up and away, the exact position every teacher tells you is wrong. So how did he strike it so pure for so long? Because on the way down, his lower body fired first and pulled that elbow right back down into the slot in front of his hip before the club ever came near the ball. The flying elbow at the top didn't matter. The sequence coming down was flawless. That's the whole lesson in one man. It was never about where the elbow sits at the top. It's about what leads on the way down. The ground leads, the hips lead. The elbow follows. The hands come last. So let me give you the finale now. The thing I promised you. The discovery that finally tied it all together for me, and it comes straight out of Hogan's 5 Lessons from 1957, sitting on library shelves this whole time while I threw money at plastic gadgets. Hogan described the start of the downswing not as a swing of the arms, but as a turning of the hips back toward the target, and he was very specific that this hip move happens first before the arms come down at all, and as the hips turn and clear out of the way, they create a space, an open channel down along your right side. That space is where the elbow drops into. Hogan's genius was that he wasn't trying to pull the elbow in. He was turning his hips out of the way so the elbow had a clear path home. The elbow didn't move to the body moved to reveal the path, and gravity and sequence did the rest. Here is the drill, and this is the one that changed everything for me. Stand as if you're addressing a ball, no club needed. Put your right hand flat against the front of your right hip, fingers pointing down. That spot just in front of your hip is the target that's home for your elbow. Now, take your right arm to the top like a backswing, and to start down, do not move your arm 1 inch. Instead, shift your weight into your left foot and start turning your hips open toward the target. You will feel something almost magical. As your hip clears, your right elbow will fall, all on its own, right down onto that spot where your hand was. You didn't pull it there. You cleared the way and let it arrive. Do that with no club until it feels automatic. Then add a club and make those slow half swings, feeling the hips lead and the elbow fall into that home spot in front of the hip. Then, and only then, let it speed up. What you're building is the exact sequence Hogan described in 1957, the same sequence Byron Nelson used to win 11 straight, the same feel Percy Boomer taught in his barrel back in 1942. This knowledge never died. It was preserved in a handful of old books and a few grainy films, kept alive by people who cared more about the truth of the swing than the sale of the next gadget. And now it's yours. The best part is what it does to the rest of your game, all at once, for free. When that elbow drops into the slot the right way, the club shallows out and attacks the ball from the inside, and that alone kills a slice at the root. You stop coming over the top, you start compressing your irons, taking that crisp little divot after the ball instead of chunking behind it, and the power, oh, the power. Because now the club head is lagging behind, storing energy, releasing last, right through impact, instead of your hands throwing it all away from the top. I gained real distance in my 60s, not from a $500 driver, but from a dish towel and a feeling and an old book. Longer, straighter, and cleaner, all from fixing one thing in the right order. So the next time you stand over that ball and feel the old fear that the elbow's going to fly and the shot's going to leak right, I want you to remember this. Your body already knows how to do this. It knew before the gadgets. It knew before the marketing. You just have to turn your hips out of the way and let that elbow come home to the spot in front of your pocket, the way the great ones did it, quietly, for free, long before anyone tried to sell you the answer. That's the thing I want you to feel walking away from this. Not that you learned a golf tip, but that you took back something that was quietly taken from you. The plain, honest knowledge that the fix was always inside you and it never cost a dime. You're not the kind of person who gets talked into the next shiny thing. You're the kind who wants the real method, the proven one, the one that outlived every fad because it actually works. So let me ask you something, and I truly want you to answer this one. How many training aids and gadgets are sitting in your garage right now, gathering dust, that promised to fix your swing and never did? Go count them. Then come down to the comments and tell me the number, and tell me the worst one you ever bought. I'll go first and admit mine was that inflatable ball I squeezed between my arms like a fool. Leave a comment, even just the number. This audience is quiet, and I'd love to hear from you for once. And if any of this rang true, come join us. This isn't about following a channel. It's about a whole group of us who are done being sold to, done throwing money at plastic, and ready to recover the real, timeless know-how that our fathers and grandfathers used without a second thought. Subscribe and stand with us, because next time, I'm going to show you the forgotten fix for the other half of this problem, how the position of your right foot at the top secretly decides whether your hips can even clear at all. A detail from that same 1957 book that almost nobody talks about anymore. You won't want to miss where that one leads. Before you go, one thing. This video showed you why that elbow flies out. But inside the Always Almanac, I walk you through the full elbow drill, step by step, right where we left off. If something isn't clicking, ask me directly. And I answer you myself, a real person, never a machine. You won't be alone. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone at the code. Cancel anytime. I'd love to see you there.